one of the most fundamental principles of war is that all things being equal, you want to defeat your enemy when they are at their weakest. Any good general, any good king would not want to wait for his enemy to gain greater power, for his enemy to resupply his soldiers, for his enemy to sort of grow or mature his forces, but rather they'd want to take advantage of their enemy when they are at their weakest. But what we hear in the book of wisdom in our first reading is that our God is someone different than this. And this is because God's power is so great, is so unmatched. The book of wisdom says, your mastery over all things makes you lenient to all. It is because God's power is so great, that it is so wonderful, that he can even wait. He can allow his enemy perhaps to grow, to mature, to end up in a better position. And yet his power is so great that it makes no difference. And it is because of that he's able to be lenient, that he's able to be merciful, and to be patient. We hear this fleshed out more in our gospel reading today. Jesus tells this parable that a master has weeds sown in by an enemy alongside his wheat. But instead of pulling up these weeds when they are still small, undergrown, when they haven't yet reached their full power, he waits. He waits for a particular reason, and that is so that the wheat might not be mistaken for these weeds and pulled up prematurely. The master waits so that he gives all the chance to fully materialize, to fully become what they are going to become. He has such power that he can wait, that he can be patient, that he can, even if the weeds are fully grown, fully matured, he can still remove them from his harvest. And this answers the question that so often we think to ourselves, why does God allow evil people to continue in our world? Why does he permit them to continue in their actions? And it is because God's power is so great that it is more than enough to handle all of the evil that the world can bring, even when it is at its fullest. And so he's able, because of this power, to be compassionate and to be patient with all of us. He's able to give all of us the time and the space we need to convert, to change our hearts, to become who we are called to be. The Lord does not rush in too early to save things or to turn things around, because he knows that we still might change. We might turn our hearts to him, if only given more time. And his power is great enough to allow for that. And so the Lord has such great compassion and such great patience for us, that then we have to have that patience and that compassion first with ourselves. So many of us condemn ourselves too early. We look at our sins, we look at the evil that we have done in our lives, the effect that we have had on others, and we condemn ourselves. We decide all too early that we are unworthy of God's mercy, that we are condemned, that we cannot change, that we are outside the power of God's mercy. And so first, we must have the same compassion and the same patience that God has and have it for ourselves. Give ourselves the time and the space that we need to convert. The Lord is willing to wait for it, because he knows that that good is greater than any evil. And so we must be patient with ourselves. So often, what we demand from ourselves is perfection. We decide that we must be perfect in order to earn God's mercy, forgetting altogether that God's mercy is not something earned, but that it is given by his great power. It is not our power that gains for us more time, that gains for us God's patience, but it is his great power over all things that gains that for us. And so we demand perfection from ourselves. All the while, God is only asking for us to make progress, to continue to walk with him, to walk towards him. We have to come to do as the Lord has done. He accepts us in our humanity and in our brokenness and in our failures. And so we have to come to accept ourselves in all our broken humanness that we have. So often we fill ourselves with this toxic, negative self-talk, telling ourselves over and over again that we're not good enough, that we don't have what it takes. And so we have to, as St. Paul says in our second reading, ask the Spirit. For the Spirit comes to our aid and prays for us in ways in which we know not how to pray. The Spirit comes and replaces our condemnation of ourselves with the mercy and the patience of the Lord. And it is only when we come to have that faith in the Lord's patience and his mercy, and come to have that for ourselves, that then we are able to be patient with others. If we are condemning our brokenness and our humanity in ourselves, it is for sure going to happen that we will condemn the humanity of others. But if we come to find patience and compassion for ourselves, then we can come to have it as well for others.